This is episode 337, and we're talking about how to create effective content on a budget with Jared Harman. Welcome to the Content Queen podcast. I'm your host, Mariah, entrepreneur, storyteller, digital nomad, creator of Content Bootcamp, and founder of Content Queen with over 10 years experience in marketing. This podcast is here to help you create the perfect content marketing strategy for your business and your business only, blending storytelling and strategy. So let's get into it. Hello, gang. All right, content, budgets. I know we don't have endless amounts of money to spend on content creation, and that's totally fair. Like, we don't need to, right? It's all about understanding our audience, understanding what's going to work for our audience, what's going to connect with them, and how it works in our overall vision of how marketing will perform in our business. Everyone's goals are different. Everyone is going to spend less or more money depending, and getting advice from people is amazing. Hearing what other people do is also great, but it's always coming at it from a lens of what is going to work for my business. So I have marketer Jared Harman to come on and chat about this. He's an agency owner. He owns a full service marketing agency based in British Columbia. He has a strong background in brand strategy, digital marketing, and operations, and he leads his agency with a clear focus on delivering measurable results while building long-term partnerships with clients. He's under his leadership in his agency, the One Group Agency. He has grown a trusted marketing partner for businesses across a variety of industries, and he offers integrated services, including strategy, creative, content production, and performance marketing. So he has had a lot of experience in marketing. He's worked with all sorts of budgets, and it was really cool to have a chat with him about marketing in general, for you to get a little bit of a behind the scenes look into how agency owners work, how marketers work, and really give you a bit of guidance on creating your own content as well. So let's chat with Jared.
Amazing. Jared, welcome to the Content Queen podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you. But before we get into all the amazing questions I have for you, can you tell everyone a little bit more about who you are?
Yeah, I'm a lifelong marketing person. Been doing it for what seems like forever now. And even before I was doing it, I think I've always been one of those people who focus on networking and trying to figure out how to promote things, and always kind of had that interest in mind. So besides that, got a couple of kids, love golf, getting older, but still feel like I'm 20 years old at heart. So yeah.
I love that. And how did you get into, running your own business and doing your own work? Like, what's your story, your business story?
Yeah, I mean, I got a late start, I think, relative to most. If I had a regret, that might be it. But I always say at the same time, learned a lot along the way to get to where I am today and to get to that point where I knew it's what I wanted to do. I spent a lot of time working in jobs I loved, spent a lot of time in sports. And then right around the time I left the world of sports, I had some opportunities to get involved in some businesses, which is really my first unintentional kind of foray into having my own thing. And both of them were complete disasters, but they did give me that little taste of what it could be like to work for myself, and that kind of inspired me to refocus and find something that I love doing, which was marketing, and so that just kind of became a natural fit for me.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be entrepreneurship if you didn't have a few fails along the way. If you throw those in the bin, start again.
Yeah, it's funny when that happened. Like, I had so many people tell me that, like, oh, it's just part of being an entrepreneur. Like, you're gonna fail a couple times. I'm like, it'd be way better if I didn't have to do that first, though. But yeah, I mean, for sure, like, definitely learned a lot from it. And I think there's just like, you can't really define it, but there's like a weird point where you realize, like, hey, like, I can figure this out, and you kind of start to believe in yourself as having your own business. Like, when I first started, I was like terrified, all the standard feelings, but somewhere along the way that switched to, like, yeah, I could do this, and then the losses don't feel as bad, and you learn something from it, like I said. So
Yeah, no, definitely. And like, hindsight's a great thing, but in the moment, it's kind of like, this is not fun.
yeah,
So you've
yeah.
had a massive background across like hospitality. You mentioned sports, events, marketing, as you said, and working in agency. Like, what are some of the lessons or takeaways you've had from all that experience that's helped you in what you do with marketing for your clients or marketing yourself and your business?
Yeah, I mean, I would say both hospitality and sports play a huge role in developing and, like, helping, someone learn how to handle being out in like the real world and like in the business world specifically. Hospitality, it's a very fast paced, constantly moving. You can't predict what kind of, you know, crap you're going to deal with on a day-to-day basis and type of people you're going to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So, and I started in that industry when I was like 11 years old. So like, really young and just like figuring out like, hey, like some people are nice, some people aren't as nice and all the things that go with it. And the teamwork aspect there too, right? Like, when you're in a restaurant, everybody's kind of relying on each other, the bartender, the kitchen staff, the front of house staff, and you kind of all need to be pulling the chain the same way. And very similar for me, at least with sports, right? Like team environment, learning how to, work with other people, succeed and fail with those people. Not all of them are going to be your best friends or, be on your Christmas card list. And some people will. And so, and figuring out what it takes to do that and accomplish something as a group. So I think, both those things, there's a million different examples of them over the years that I did them, but both those things went a long way in helping me understand. And I think, and I hope how to be, a better, not just marketing person, but also a leader for the team here.
Yeah, it's so cool how, all the experience you've had in your life, you can bring into, you sort of gather them all together and they're never a waste of time or a waste of energy because they all help you towards something. And I mean, a lot of the things that you talk about, what we spoke about back and forth, sort of like putting together this episode was really around like effective content or effective market within a budget. And a lot of people that listen to this show, small business owners, trying to do a lot of work themselves. And, we have these free channels like social media, we have these free opportunities. So there's sort of that balance between like putting money into your marketing, but then also utilizing free resources because we don't have massive budget. And we sort of have this mindset. We see, big brands doing massive marketing campaigns and all of this like fancy marketing. Then we've got like small business owners just killing it with a tripod and an iPhone. But I'd be keen to hear a little bit more about your experience with like effective marketing budgets and what things you'd share with small business owners that are like, I feel like I could do it all for free, but also you've got to put that bit of cash or time into it to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is figuring out like where your time is best spent as a small business owner, right? I mean, I think quite often if you were to look at the small, like, the startups or the small business owners who are really good at social themselves, it probably comes somewhat naturally to them. Like, I don't think in a lot of cases it's forced or, like I would even that most of them were probably doing a lot of social media work and doing those types of things before they even started their business. There's so much that goes with like having that routine. It's not just about being like comfortable on camera or any of that stuff, but it's just like, getting into a rhythm with what to produce and when to produce it. And because the reality of it is like one of the biggest changes even since we started is like the need for like, cinematic or like heavy branded video and content isn't really a thing anymore. It serves a purpose and it has a place for sure. But like you'll typically perform better doing more real, approachable content than you will trying to create these like fancy ads that look like they're overproduced. So I think when it comes down to making that decision and how you most effectively spend, it's really figuring, okay, like, any small business owner can relate. There's a million things to do in the day. Well, what are the things that I know I can crush and like knock off my plate really easily by myself? And what are the things that like I know I need help with? And for a lot of people, the content side is a challenge. So if you can find someone to work with that can do, create good assets for you at an affordable price point, that's awesome. The other big thing too is like, again, when we started, our whole model was going after small to medium business for the same reason. And it was funny, like we would lose clients because we'd show up with like a one person content team whose output would be the same as like a 10-person content team. And now that's not to knock that 10-person team, but it's changed quite a bit in the last few years. There's still this mentality, like if you're paying for production, there better be, lights, camera, action, and all the bells and whistles that go with it. If you've got someone who knows what they're doing and there's a good outline and a good story, like you could almost accomplish the same with your phone, right? And so that helping people understand that you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to produce good content is a start.
And I think the influencers really showed us that. I mean, I remember in 2024 watching a 10-part No, 50-part series, 10-minute videos of a woman sharing how she married a psychopath, a pathological liar, sorry. And she
Yeah.
would film it like no mic, no, like just kind of like, I mean, for people watching the video, like it was just like, almost just facing downward, like the worst angles, just like her in her car. And I mean, obviously that's content creation versus like being a business owner. But I think it really showed us like videos like that sort of reached people, had impact and created sort of community, are often those videos, and I think now, and I don't know if you've seen the same thing, but I see now these comments on places like TikTok of these influencers where they're just talking as if they're FaceTiming their friends. And
Yeah.
these people, I mean, now it can be a little bit like parasocial, right? These people have these relationships with these
Yeah.
influencers that have zero idea who they are really because they just see comments. But I think that really kicked off, for business owners and brands that, your Gucci's and your Louis Vuittons on TikTok just have no traction unless they get a Gen Z that just like has a camera and just does whatever they want. But that's why, and maybe you can chime in on this, like it's important to also know your audience as well, because some people resonate with different forms of content, which would, I guess, help you work out where to spend your money and your budget too, because some people, for your Louis Vuittons, that is a premium brand. So maybe for them to hire a Gen Z to just do content wouldn't make sense. Whereas us small business owners, we don't need that highly production content because it just doesn't resonate either.
No, I think it's a great point. Like I think, going back to that whole cinematic like lights, camera, action thing I mentioned earlier, like that's like that does serve and fit like those big expensive brands because there's almost this expectation and that they are trying to create that like we've got all kinds of money because we're big, luxurious, and can afford it. So we should be doing these high-end productions with, J-Lo walking down a catwalk wearing the dress and has the purse and like all those things, right? Whereas if you do that as a small business, you're almost instantly making yourself unapproachable. And
Mm.
it's like, okay, like who like this small business has, J-Lo and all these, bells and whistles, like it doesn't make sense, right? I think the other thing too, and like I would say this is true of just about any brand, big or small, but especially true of small business. There's an element of like relatability and approachability that's so important with the content, and you're not going to accomplish that with anything super polished and high end. Like there needs to be some rawness to it and some, like so having that influencer, or whoever, just like it's just like, the unboxing videos, which kind of not as big a thing, but was
Mm.
a big thing for a while. Like just watching someone who maybe like looked like you or looked like someone you wanted to look like, or, whatever, had a lifestyle that maybe you wanted to have or whatever, just having that natural, normal experience of like bringing something home, opening it up, checking it out, trying it on, whatever it might be. It kind of like it drives that ambition even further for the potential client. And to go back to your comment about the audience, like for sure, I will say though that I think content types are almost applicable across audiences. It's just it's like the style of videography in this case probably works for just about every audience. What's in that video is what will change. So like what age the influencer is, what gender, like all those things. I think that's where the variables come in, and that will become product based or service based into what it is they're trying to promote. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said this earlier, like it is so easy to create content, and the days of people analyzing, oh, is that shot properly, are like so far gone, right? Nobody's questioning that stuff anymore, right? And so and there was a time where it was like you couldn't, like, God forbid, 10 years ago, you post something that wasn't over edited with like, subtitles and all the, the different stuff on it, right? So, yeah, but I mean, the starting point for everything should always be know who you're talking to for sure.
Mm. And thank God that things aren't over engineered. Like
Yeah.
I think people forget how long video editing takes, especially with content. Like you think, oh, I'll just do a quick video and it depends on how you want it to look. But if it's over polished and over engineered, it takes triple the amount of time, right? And time, as we know, is money. So I think a lot of business owners save a lot of time in that aspect with the fact that content doesn't need to be as polished anymore. I wanted to touch on like budget and sort of like when we start to, I guess, put more money into our marketing. So when you're working with small and medium-sized businesses and they come to you and yeah, they're started with say like a social media approach. I think a lot of business owners do because obviously that's an easy thing to pick up and it's free and cheap. When do you recommend people start to go, okay, maybe we need to invest in a little bit more, whether it is maybe advertising or hiring someone to pick up the slack, or, maybe going, oh, let's start a podcast. So if we're going to start a podcast, maybe we need to invest in a podcast editor or a software or something like that. When do we get to the point where we should start actually? Because I know a lot of business owners also don't put a lot of money into their marketing either, because social media is for free. So they kind of hit a roadblock where they're like, oh, well, social media is not working anymore. But it's because they're also not investing in other places in their organic, even though organic is technically like a free type of marketing. Also, at some point, we do need to start investing into it.
Yeah, I think with any business, there's a ceiling on how far you can expand your network and your reach organically, right? I mean, the only exception to that is stumbling onto some sort of viral moment that like blows your profile out of the water. But if you're banking on that, you've probably got bigger problems. So, um, like I think, when you launch your business, if assuming you're doing a good job on your own or however you're doing your marketing, I think you'll see like an initial, let's say explosion might be the wrong word, but an initial jumping off point where you can see things grow, grow, grow. And then, like anything in business, it really comes down to monitoring those levels, the growth of your accounts and what you're doing. And then as you start to see that thing stabilize a little bit, like that's when you need to start looking. Because at some point you will hit a point where you're not getting outside your box anymore, right? Like, okay, like you've got your 10,000 followers and they've been 10,000 diehard loyal followers, but they've just stopped there. Or you've gone from growing by 50 a week to 5 a week, whatever it is. And that's when you need to start to look, okay, like I might have hit my limit here. So how, the good thing is if you've had some exponential growth, you can take that data and start to use that to figure out where and how you spend that money moving forward. The other thing too, again, if you're growing, like it's the same problem I mentioned before, like resourcing is going to become an issue, because if you're growing, that hopefully that means you're, dealing with other things like product fulfillment and, like all the administrative things that go along with it, right? So which would and should mean less time to worry about the marketing, which therefore might, indicate a need for either some internal or external help and some additional dollars there too. It's like anything. It's just trying to project what those patterns are going to be, so you know when to jump in before it's too late. Because the other side of it is you don't want to be stagnant for too long either, right? You want to, and then you might start seeing a depletion in your audience, which would be even worse.
Mm. And you mentioned something interesting, which is the data, because the data will tell us a lot. Do you have any like examples or things that have come up for you? Like, you mentioned, I think the good one is like followers on social media, right? Once you hit a threshold of like, oh, okay, I'm not growing as much as I need. Maybe I need to expand my reach or something like that. What can the data tell us in terms of where to put our money? And what examples have you seen of people sort of using the data to spend their money really wisely in their marketing?
Yeah, I think, I mean, gender is always a big one, because I think I've seen a lot of examples where people think that their product or their service is really gonna, hit with one, men age 50 plus. So I'm making 50 plus is probably a bad example for social media, but you get where I'm going with it. But then after, analyzing things for 6 months, you see it's actually, females who are 35 plus, whatever, like that kind of stuff, and like looking for variables that you maybe didn't expect. The other piece could be is looking at that data and saying, okay, like I think I've capped this piece of the market organically. If I want to reach, 19-year-olds, or people in this city, like I didn't get there organically, so I'm going to focus my spend there, because you have reason to believe that there's an audience there for you, which might not necessarily relate specifically to social, but it just for whatever reason didn't catch organically. So now you start to attack those different areas, trying to stack audiences on top of each other. Then if you start following their habits and what they're doing online, and how they're engaging, which is an important thing, obviously, then you can again just kind of refocus your campaigns to try to encourage more interaction, which will help the brand grow as well.
Mm. I like what you say. I think there's something in that sort of like, we forget with marketing that nothing is ever set, right? So we think, oh, well, we're going to target this audience, or our product is made for this person. I mean, I've worked with a lot of startups over the years, so I see this happen with product development, right? You create features, or you create a product, or like in SaaS especially, and then people use it not how it's intended to be used. So then you sort of go, okay, like most of my, or if not all of my users are using it in a completely different way. So you sort of have to shift towards that. But I think there's something valuable in the concept of understanding that with your marketing as well. And what you just mentioned, like, are there different audiences or different people that you need to market to? And I think we forget that exhaustion of an audience or exhaustion of a type of marketing is okay. I think we just think, oh, well, I
Totally.
have to be on doing this, organic content, which I think organic content always has a place, but it shifts its focus, right? It may just be for brand awareness. It may not be for conversion if you're starting to run ads. And I think we think, oh, well, it has to always work how it used to. And you see this with even in the TikTok or social media world, in the content creation space, where they keep trying to do the same video, even though it stopped working
Yeah.
2 years
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
that's the point. You exhaust it, then you move on to something else. But I think often sometimes we just like sitting in our comfortable spot of what we always used to do.
Yeah, I see a lot of businesses too that get really what's the right word, like comfortable with their brand and their organic content, and they don't want to deviate from their approach. And as we've seen, especially in the last couple of years with ads, like the style of content for ads is so like, especially effective content for ads is so different. And like I'll be the first to say, like I don't like it's not aesthetically pleasing to me like how a lot of those ads look, but they work and they convert.
Yeah.
And so like even for like our company, when we run ads, a lot of times we're kind of replicating that style, for our industry, even though I would never want it posted in our organic feed. And like a lot of times whether it's for ourselves or for our clients, we say like, the approach we typically take now is like your organic feed is kind of the portfolio you want to represent your brand aesthetically. So it's regardless, it doesn't matter the style, but like that's the style that you want to present. Your ads need to be whatever's going to work. And like, even if it doesn't match, like you can pull little pieces in and out of it, but like, even if it's a completely different aesthetic, like it shouldn't matter because like if that's what's performing and the results are there, then and there's an argument why that will work there. That's why you need to do it. And people have a really hard time escaping their organic brand to do what's necessary to convert for ads.
Mm.
And I always say to clients like, hey, like, we're gonna present you this strategy. Um, and within that, it's going to say why we think it'll work, what we think it'll do. But I want to prep you, it is going to look nothing like your feed in terms of like, you're going to probably wince at the style and the look of it because it doesn't look anything like what you want to put out there. But there's a reason for this, and here's why. And so trying to get them across that line too can be a challenge.
Yeah, that's super interesting. The ugly ad is
Oh, terrible. Like all the different graphics and like the emojis dropping in, like it just like it to me, it's just too much. But like I said, like you can't argue with the numbers, right?
yeah,
And again, it depends on the product and everything else too. But like, and the reality of it is, like there's only so many brands out there that can rely entirely on their brand itself. Like the Nikes and the Yetis and like all
of
those big
course.
companies that like they don't need to mess. Like they're just gonna produce what they want to produce because they're beyond that point, right? But like
Mm.
again, like most companies that we're dealing with are it's not a bad thing, but they're just nowhere near that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, does everyone want to do that? And I think that's where, like,
Yeah.
it's got to be important with your goals. Like, I don't think everyone wants to create the next Nike. They just want to create the impact in the space that they have. And it's really interesting what you say around, and especially when you're pouring money, like organic content, I think the beauty of it is like you don't see the money you put into it because, like,
Yeah.
essentially it's not there, right? And like
Yeah.
obviously if you pay someone, yes, it's there, but you don't calculate the amount of hours it takes
Yeah.
you and how much because you just don't do that, right? Not a lot anyway. I think people that are highly productive do, and I think that's great. And I think that's a really
Yeah.
good decision. I remember someone saying to me years ago when I'd had one VA and I was doing my own graphics, and I hate doing graphics, like it's just not my thing. And the mentor said to me, like, oh, how many hours does it take you to do it? And she's like, and how much would you want to charge yourself per hour? That's how much you're like losing. And I think that's a good reframe when to like invest in your marketing. I was like, oh yeah, good point. So I hired someone to help me with my graphics. So I think we forget that because we don't think about that. But when you're spending money into ad dollars that you can actually see come out of your account, you want them to be working. So like you'll do, I
Totally.
guess, whatever it takes, even if the content isn't quite what you want to create. But at the end of the day, people end up on your profile anyway on Instagram. So that's when you can display your best self, and your website can display your best self as well.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at. Like like that's why you like relying on your your profile to
Mm.
reflect your portfolio and your brand is the right approach, because and then use the ads to get them there however you need to, right? And then when they get there, they can see what you're all about and who you are and all those things, right? And I think like that, but again, you'd be shocked at how many, I'll call them debates, like I've gotten into with clients about that, because it's tough. It's their brand. Like they have this feeling and this emotional tie to how they think and want it to look, right? And so and you say to them, well, yeah, okay, like that it'll look really nice or how you want it to, but you're gonna be really upset when your cost per conversion is $150 or whatever, right? And you're just lighting money on fire.
Yeah. And that can, I imagine, can be really challenging as a marketing agency because you want to get the results and say a client says, no, we have to do it this way. And then you're the first to be blamed when it doesn't work.
Totally. Oh man, like the amount of conversations I have with our content team about clients' wants and needs is crazy, because like, yeah, and our strategy team, like whatever, because they're like, okay, like they'll say like this isn't gonna work, or this is gonna look bad, or it's not gonna accomplish what they want. And it doesn't reflect, like, yeah, you almost like don't want to put your name to it to some in some cases, because you want to be able to just tell it like when like talk about all the wins, right? And when you're working on something for hours and hours that stands very little chance at winning, but the client wants it, and like at the end of the day, it's their brand, their company, their money. You got to go with it. You got to produce what they want. And so you get to a point where you're almost like kind of like half-ass putting it out, because it's not going to be what you want it to be, and that it's not something you're proud of. Like I just had a conversation with the team like a week or two ago about, like, it's easy to get in these ruts where you with clients, if the clients don't want to do that fun, exciting, creative work, and they're just you're just kind of like an executioner for what they want done, versus a client who's like, yeah, like tell us what to do, like make this
Mm.
story out of this. And like you could just, on one hand the content team's like lighten up, on the other hand they're just like moping to their desk, right? And so the challenge for us is both of those clients pay the bills, and
Yeah.
and you got to find a way. But and you've got to work just as hard at the stuff that you maybe I don't say aren't as proud of, but aren't as optimistic about as the stuff that you are optimistic about. Because the flip side too, like I've seen lots of examples where we think, oh, like this is gonna crush, we killed it with this, whatever, and just flat on his face, right? Like it's, and again, like goes back to that, you got to be willing to accept failure and understand that, like, okay, like not everything's gonna work. Marketing's annoyingly subjective
Yeah.
in that sense, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I always joke, like if you're like a professional marketing person, you have to have a thick skin to some
Yeah.
extent, because you have to be willing to fail, because it's not just about what you think. You're not always right. There's like, millions and millions of people out there that are judging your work. And even though you might think they're not the smartest people, like in some cases, their opinion matters whether you like it or you don't. So
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think too, like there's so many different variables, like when you and you can't understand every single one of them, right? You can pull levers and tactics, but yeah, that's such a good point. And one thing that you just mentioned, which I think is really interesting. So like I'm a business owner, I'm going to invest money into extra support, maybe whether it's a marketing mentor, whether it's an executor, whether it's a agency, whether it's SEO or GEO, whatever it is. I think there's something that says like to make it effective and to make it work, you do have to trust the people that you get to help you, right? And you would have seen that, like
yeah,
the clients that trust you, they're the ones that you get the results. And I think a lot of times as a business owner, yes, I think there's like two approaches to it. Yes, you're the expert in the business. You're the one with the customers and the clients all the time. So your input matters, but also that person is coming with a wealth of experience that you also need to trust. So it's a double-edged sword in that way, because you really got to build. And I found that too, like the customers that or the clients that give me the input and their expertise and their subject matter expertise, and then they go, you're the expert, you do your thing, always gets the best results, right? And I'm sure you can test to that.
it's to me, it's a kind of combination of things. I think part of the reason that happens is like the agency or the team involved, when they feel like they're a part of the process, the buy-in increases. And there's a lot to be said for, I mean, in anything in life, when you trust someone with something, like they're going to feel more a part of it, and then they're going to be more inspired to do better work. I think that's a huge part of it. Um, I think there's a lot to be said for putting the best and smartest around you. And one of the things that we always use when we're talking to potential clients is like, hey, like you could hire, a marketing manager at X dollars. And, depending on what your needs and objectives are, that might be the right thing for you. But if you hire an agency, not even just us, like you're for that same price, if not less, potentially, you're going to get 16 people,
Mm,
not full time, but like as opposed to getting like a junior level videographer, you're getting, three or four people with 10, 15, 20 years experience. And same for graphic design and social media and like all these things. You're like elevating your level of expertise. Now, the purpose of doing that is so that you don't have to worry about it as much. And like on the flip side, for my team, like they probably are sick of hearing me say this, but like, when people hire us, they hire us because they don't either they don't want to do it or they don't know how to do it. And so in either scenario, they're looking to us to be like, hey, like you guys like are the ones who do this for a living. Like I'll go make the widgets and because that's what I do for a living, but you go figure out how to put that online for me to get them to buy the widgets. And so I like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when clients are coming to us saying like, why don't we have any ideas or any thoughts, or we're asking them for what they think. We should be, always leading that conversation with our clients around marketing and like trying to guide them to the right decisions. Even if, going back to the earlier conversation about how sometimes they just want what they want. Well, I always say to our team, like, hey, it's okay. Like, yeah, we might have to appease them here and there, but let's try to get them to the point where they understand why we're
mm.
suggesting what we're suggesting. Then they'll probably be on board with it. Like, if they're not agreeing with it and we feel that strongly that's the right play, we probably just haven't helped them understand it enough yet to do it. Right. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a good point. And I think, yeah, everyone will sort of, never say never. Everyone will sort of start to, and especially if they start looking at the numbers, and you could say in your monthly meeting, like, hey, the reach wasn't where or this wasn't where we wanted it to go because, we believe we could try this. And I think once they start to, see things aren't working, everyone's willing to try something, right? And I think,
yeah.
but yeah, I love all of what you said and all of those points. And I think, especially when it comes to, outsourcing and hiring, I think as business owners, especially small to medium, hiring someone full time isn't feasible. It's actually a little bit more risky as well because, like, unfortunately, business changes in like 2 seconds, at least with like someone
Yeah.
more contractual. You can sort of have that discussion and maybe pause your work together or whatever it looks like in the short term. Whereas obviously with someone full time, it's a lot harder to kind of make those changes. But I mean, with everything, it has like it's good and it's bad. But it's so interesting what you say. Like usually when people are looking to hire an agency or a marketer, it's because yeah, they either don't want to do it or they don't know how to do it. And really, I think, as you said, with marketing needing to have a really tough skin, I think we can hold that belief to ourselves a lot of the times when we're going, oh, I feel like maybe they don't want what I'm offering or this or that. Like you also have to remember why they hired you in the first place. And I think that
Totally.
often gives you the confidence to kind of, put your best front foot forward and say, this is why we think this. And I think at the end of the day, it's conversations are all humans. Like we all can express, what we think. And at the end of the day, it is up to the business owner.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And there's no bad ideas either, right? Like if you've got, some thoughts or ideas on like how to help a brand succeed, like it's and again, it goes back to the subjectivity of it all. Like it's worth putting it on the table and working through why you think things will work and going back to the numbers, like the old adage, like the numbers don't lie, right? And like that I think that's been the biggest change too, and especially digital marketing is it's really hard. Like you can back it up or prove that it didn't work pretty easily now with with the data, right? And I think that's the amount of data that's out there for to analyze and make decisions is crazy, and that's why like digital marketing has taken over the way it has. Like I look at so many businesses that still advertise in newspapers and TV and radio. Now I think there's a place for that as long as you have a massive digital budget to support it, but like if you're talking to a client who's like, oh, I was thinking the newspaper or, Google, like, it's still out there, but like again, I just couldn't imagine lighting that much money on fire all the time and without the information to support it.
I just want to hijack this episode to tell you about something that is generally helping and changing the game for business owners that I work with. So if you're sitting there at 5 p.m. scrambling, not sure what to do, what to post, you are not alone. And I have in fact been there along with many other businesses that I've worked with, getting to my laptop, throwing something together, pushing it out there, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Now, this is not strategy and it really feels like survival. That is why I created Content Bootcamp. It is my signature program that takes you through the 7 steps to create a really intentional and aligned content strategy for your business. One that is actually documented, is actually for you, and actually gets results. So there's no more guessing, no more winging it, and no more content hamster wheel. By the end of your journey in Content Bootcamp, you'll have a clear plan on what to post, where to post it, and why, plus the confidence to actually execute it. And you're not doing it alone because I do live calls all the time, so you'll get access to me. I can help you with your strategy and a community of other business owners that are doing the same thing. You'll also get lifetime access, so if your business evolves and grows and changes, it will grow and evolve and change with you. So, if you are ready to stop winging it and start being intentional with your marketing, get a strategy behind you, head to contentqueenmariah.com, check out Bootcamp, Content Bootcamp. I would love to see you there. Yeah, no, that's very true. I had a conversation with like a local, you would appreciate this as playing golf, as a golf club locally, all volunteer ran, very local. Wanted some help with their strategy. In Australia, there's a mixture of golf courses that are ran by employees, and then there's a few that are volunteer. Maybe they have like a greenskeeper that they pay, and then like the committee's all volunteer based. Yeah. And they reached out to get some help. And one of the guys who's owned his own business many moons ago was telling them to tell me that he used to spend $100 a month and get thousands of leads. And I was like, that's so great. I would love if that would happen now. But, obviously times have changed and I think he advertised in like traditional, newspapers and things. But now with the amount of access to content that we have, my dad will say, oh, did you see this on the news? I'm like, oh yeah, I watched that on TikTok. But I probably got like 4 or 5 different perspectives where you just got kind of one. But now with the amount of content that we can consume, we can also get the most return on investment for our content too, right? So, with the clients that you work with, what do you recommend to make sure that if we are creating a piece of content or we are doing something that we get the most return on the investment, whether it's no investment, just time, or actually paying someone to help you with it?
Yeah, I think like one thing that's important to keep in mind is the longevity of that content. And by that I mean like, everybody does it. You're just scrolling through whatever feed it's on and it's here, then it's gone. I think that's the first step in getting past like the need for anything super elaborate when it comes to content. Like, hey, like they're gonna watch it. If you've got someone's attention for like 30 seconds, you've absolutely killed it. Like, because the reality of it is like most people are gone, 25 seconds before that, right? So the point I'm trying to make there is like overthinking and overanalyzing like what it needs to be, and like how much time you need to spend on it is like the first thing to forget, because the amount of time you've spent doing that probably delayed it to the point where the content was no longer viable anyways, right? And so I think that that's the first thing. And if you've got a good message and a good product or service, like I think just getting it out there in some way will work almost regardless. I think in terms of like what to spend and when, like again, you've got to try to, like, I'm not a math guy by any stretch, but like you've got to try to figure out a way to analyze what the ROI is going to be for the, and you touched on this earlier too, like the actual hard costs of doing it, plus like the time spent by whether it's yourself or your team, like, because they're like every hour spent it's costing you something somewhere, right? So it's you've got to be able to say, okay, I'm X out, Y in, like what's that worth to me, and try to look at everything like that. And the only other approach besides that would be just, constantly pushing content out, like almost like it's your job, like to the point where it you're putting so much out there, it doesn't necessarily matter what the ROI is because you're just constantly hitting people with it.
Yeah, I think that's really good point and really good advice. And I think too, like if you are spending money on your content or you've got a team doing it, what are you doing as well to like get the most? Because yes, you're right. As soon as a piece of content goes out, that's why obviously we want to repurpose and get it on as like some other channels if we can. That's why things like long form content is so great, right? Because you get more longevity out of your content because this podcast can be listened as soon as it comes out and it could be listened in 2 to 3 years. Some of my episodes from years ago still get listened. Same with blogging. TikTok I think
Totally.
has a much nicer algorithm. Like I feel like I had a video that went viral 6 months after I posted it, which was absolutely crazy.
That's awesome.
Lucky it wasn't timely, right? It was just a video and it wasn't a business video, which was annoying. But anyway, that's fine. Never is.
But you can't predict that stuff though. That's the problem, right? Like I was saying
Absolutely.
earlier, like if
Yeah.
you're just sitting around waiting for that to happen, like
Oh,
you're probably it
no,
wouldn't have happened, right? And
no.
and that and like when's the last time somebody went back to YouTube or TikTok or Instagram to see an informational video or like an ad, right? It just doesn't happen. So you're just like you've got to get past the, again, I keep using the word aesthetic, but the aesthetic of it, and just say, okay, like how do I get this information out in the best way possible and the most digestible way possible so that when they see the next one tomorrow, there's some relatability to it and like, okay, they get it. They're like you're just really trying to like imprint yourself on people essentially.
Yeah, and sometimes it is a numbers game, like I think it is, and obviously like to the capacity in which you can do it. But, I think it's also important that if you are spending money, whether it's time or whether it is like outsourcing, what are the sales or the activities that you're doing to like push people further down the funnel? But then, as you said, if you have a great product or service, the marketing will just push that to the foreground if you've got like good
Yep.
reviews, good testimonials, etc. But a lot of the times, like in my experience, maybe you've had the same thing, like you do all this marketing and then, if the business owner isn't doing their part in terms of like optimizing their product or having the sales calls or, networking or going to events or whatever it is that is part of their plan, then obviously your content or your marketing can only get you so far, or optimizing their website or anything. So I think it's
Yep.
always like if you are spending money in one place, like if you're spending money on your social media or you're outsourcing it, you've got to also use that time to invest in other things that are going to push people further down the funnel. Otherwise, you're just leading it to nowhere.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was just gonna say like people have to look at it holistically as well because like if you're just posting on TikTok, well, you're missing whole other audiences on other platforms or if you're doing all that work on social and say you're covering all the channels, but your website doesn't exist or is MIA or you're not pushing out, looking for Google reviews, whatever it is, right? Like you can't just rely on like one channel to drive your business. And to your comment about like, the business owners, we always tell clients like, hey, like we're going to do everything we can to drive people to your business, by phone, by email, by text, whatever, in person. But if we can't do anything once they're there, like, if you suck at customer service or your product sucks or whatever the case may be, like there's a ceiling, there's a limit there, right? So um yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. A lot of times, like you said, we'll get the blame regardless, but we try to be as transparent about that as possible. Like it's when we work with restaurants, like yeah, there's lots of ways to get people excited about a new restaurant and get them through the door. But if they get there and the service is slow and the food's not good and whatever, like don't get mad at us because like
Mm.
we didn't serve them nor did we cook the food or make the drinks, right? So and that's where you transition the responsibility to the business owner for that first impression. Like that's what counts the most, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that when you are outsourcing your marketing, that you do have to spend time on all the parts of your business. And I think it's natural for that to happen. Oh, if I just get more eyes on my business, everything will be great and I won't have to worry. But there could be so many gaps. But that's what I think what's interesting about the numbers and the data. You can actually find where those gaps are. I've had clients in the
Totally.
past where it's like people are going to your website, but they're not converting. Cool. You know that you just have to focus on optimizing your website. And that's great, isn't it? Like that's a good problem to know. And maybe you optimize it and it still doesn't work. We've always got to be, as you said, marketing is subjective. I think anything is like you got to keep working towards optimizing it because like things change, clients change, the landscape change. I mean, Gen Z's come in and made marketing all kinds of odd. I mean, I even saw a guy, I want to do a whole episode on it. He's a therapist and he commented on some girl's video. It was very strange, her video. And he wrote I'm taking appointments if you need them. Just that simple comment. And he got like 1 million likes or something ridiculous. And then like everyone's in the comments like, I think you should contact, whatever his name is. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that type of,
Yeah.
that's marketing. Like that sort of stuff
Yeah.
is so funny. And it's just one simple comment on a post.
Yeah.
Whether, it's obviously mental health is a very sensitive topic. So it's not to like shed light on that, but it's more like how interesting one comment on a piece of content can create visibility to your business as well. And I think it's kind of cool. Like I know Gen Z's sort of rocked the boat a bit and made us all like, oh my God, what is going on? What is this landscape? But I think I don't know, there's good bits to it as well. Everything's always changing.
It's also a great example of why you should try different things and do different things because you don't know what's going to land. Like like I think one thing that's changed in the last couple of years is people's willingness to be a little bit more, I don't know, like playful and poke fun and create stuff that like create content that maybe is less focused on the business itself and more focused on just being interesting content that has relatability to the business because like if you're gonna watch it, like realistically, like, do you really want to watch an ad about shoes for 60 seconds on Instagram? No, but if it's some kind of, I don't know, like a skit or I don't know, something that's interesting that happens to also be about shoes, like that's way more intriguing to me. Like I always, we reference this video that was done in LA for this real estate agent that was selling this property, and this property had this unbelievable deck. And he kept talking about how like there's all these people talking about how big the deck was, but obviously the insinuation was something different, and it was
Yeah.
awesome, and it was like so creative, and like I don't live anywhere near LA. I'm not buying real estate there. Like I have no interest in it at all. I watched all 2 minutes of it because it was hilarious, right? And like
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that like trying to find ways to be creative around topics that generally aren't super creative or like aren't thought to be as creative or people aren't used to seeing creative content around can go so far, right? Like I think that video's got like 4 million views, like only one person can buy the property. Like, like I mean, I'm sure it sold like 10 years ago at this point. Like I don't even know, but it's that's where you've got to be willing to push some boundaries and like find ways outside of your comfort zone to create some conversation about your product or service.
Yeah, such a good point. I mean, I went to a lunch on Friday and an economist in Australia spoke at it. And someone said, "Oh, I love your dancing on LinkedIn." And I was like, "What?" So I looked at her profile and yeah, she does like say TikTok skits about the economy and
Yeah.
economics on her LinkedIn. And I thought it was quite interesting because she's kind of taken something that is like so like it. Oh, sorry, my brother's messaging me about we're house sitting for him. Let me snooze him. Yeah, like something so dry and like, serious, right? Money. Everyone like,
Yeah.
and then she did a video like, it was, Australia is rich was like the title, and then it was like, do I think Australians are complaining? Yes, I do. And I'm like, whoa, that could like really rattle some cages. But she's like, she's doubling down. Like she's an economist.
Yeah.
She actually sees it every day. Like she knows the landscape of the economy, obviously maybe not to the details of things she might not be seeing. But yeah, it was just like, I thought that was such an interesting take on a platform that can be so serious. And I mean, I guess it worked. I mean, she doesn't have a business. She's just an economist. But like,
Yeah.
she gets asked to come and speak at things like the company that I went to this lunch for, they had asked her to speak. So, it's sort of interesting how much it's changed and everyone is willing to, yeah, take a joke or maybe also not. But then also at the same time, like we kind of just roll with it, right? The cancel culture is huge, but I think it's also
Yeah.
like you get uncancelled just as quick as you get cancelled these days.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's kind of coming back a little bit, but like I was like growing up as like a sports fanatic, like and listening to sports talk radio and sports on TV, like the broadcasters who are the most popular are the ones who aren't afraid to like say how they feel and like put it out there. Definitely not always the most popular thing to do, but like the ones with an actual personality are the ones that people want to tune into, and they're the ones that are making the big bucks. Like it's not any different when politicians. I don't want to get into the whole political thing, but you look at the people getting elected these days and all that kind of stuff. They're out there. There's comments and stuff like that, and it's like no the old saying like any news is good news, not entirely true, but like but if you can create conversation, now you've got engagement and community, and you can obviously ideally positive, but you can start to drive that and again, if nothing else, worst case scenario, look at that data and see who's interested in what you're doing and build from there. Like I
Yeah.
think that's the part that people overlook the most is like it doesn't always have to be a home run. Like any data you can gather to help guide your business decisions is going to be helpful.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I like what you say. I think it's like, at the end of the day, you have to the opinion you have or you're putting yourself out there. If you trust yourself and you believe in what you sell and what you know and what you teach, like, yeah, people are going to disagree. I think that's just unfortunately the more people you reach with your social media content, the more people like I do content for a local restaurant. And they've been around 20 years. They create really great food. Obviously, some people don't always have the best experience. That's just what happens. You have old stuff that come out of the woodwork. We always notice on a full moon, we seem to get more negative comments than
Yeah,
usual.
yeah,
But you know
yeah.
what? It just happens, and you've got to like have your response. You have your dedicated response. You have your rule. Like I delete anything that's like personal about the person on the screen. Like if it's about a team member, about their appearance, like that
Mhm.
just gets deleted. That's a non-negotiable. Everything else, I just kind of leave because at the end of the day, like I think if you had all 5 stars and all great comments, people probably wouldn't trust you anyway because they'd be like, oh, that
No.
feels like a bit of a red flag. Unfortunately, the way the social media, we have so many keyboard warriors out there that you just have to kind of like I had a TikTok about my health. I had a very serious operation and I was diagnosed with cancer at 26. And I
Oh,
had
wow.
someone say to me, it's not even that big of a deal. And I went, oh, I'm really sorry that you think that because that was horrific. Like that was the worst thing I've ever gone through. I said, have you had a Whipples? And they're like, oh yeah, I haven't. I'm like, well, I'm really sorry because like for me, that sucked. Like I would never want to wish that upon anyone. Right. And then they started following me and liking all my content. So I think some
Of
people,
course.
they just it's their reflection on themselves. Unfortunately, just kind of tune out to that sometimes.
When you're involved in any kind of business that has any kind of public facing profile, and this goes back like before, digital media, but especially true digital media, like you have to accept very quickly that the negative people are always going to be the loudest. Like people don't often take the time to provide positive feedback online because they had a good experience. They aren't really thinking about like
Mm,
it's like almost like you like if you think about any time that you've left a positive review, I bet you've generally been asked to do so, or the experience was just so positive that like you couldn't resist doing it. And whereas if you've had a negative experience somewhere, you're kind of fired up and you're like, oh, like and like to your point about people reflection of people's own selves, like a lot of times it's sad and unfortunate, but people are just like they're utilizing that as an outlet for their own
mm,
stuff. So it's and that I agree, like like some people get panicked about like the one or two bad reviews or this, that, or the other, and it's like, well, you can't really think that everybody thinks that everybody who's come to your business has had like the most amazing 5-star experience ever. And so to me, then the approach we take with a lot of our clients is if somebody's had a bad experience, and to your point, as long as it's not a personal attack or anything like that, we often show or tell our clients to show like to respond and like in a positive way and show that you're trying to earn their business back. And a lot of times even then they still come at you, but most reasonable people will look at that and be like, yeah, like, okay, like their food came out cold, the restaurant offered them a free dinner next week and they still kept attacking them. Like that's not about the restaurant, that's about that person, right? Like so yeah, like and again, going all the way back to the comment around like real raw content, it's no different with those types of things online. Like people are going to see through the rose-colored glasses that you try to implement if that's what you're doing. So
mm. Yeah, that's such a good point. No, it's definitely a personal journey when you start your own business. You have to
yeah,
you can't take anything too personal because otherwise you'll never show up online, you'll never promote your business, you'll never serve customers. And of course, we have our moments, like we have our weeks where we're like, oh, I can't do this. I just want to like close my laptop and go on holidays for like 2 weeks. But unfortunately, it doesn't end. And you get through, and then there's like it's just such a roller coaster. But I think it's like that with anything when you have a job working for someone else, it's the same thing. You have the same roller coasters. You just probably don't have as much emotional attachment to it because it's not something that you're actively growing yourself and you've put all your blood, sweat, and tears and like lots of tears, I'm sure. And like it's more personal than if you worked in maybe a corporate job and you got some negative feedback from your boss. Like it
Totally.
obviously it cuts a lot deeper. And I have that. I've had like a client, I said the one that works business for 20 years. That's why they brought me on, because they couldn't like the good comments and the bad comments. They really struggled with the bad comments, and they've been around for 20 years. So now that I handle it, and we all like, we can all kind of group around and do it together, and then we sort of talk about it, and you know, whatever we need to do to like play down the situation, make the person feel better. But you know, the owner still takes it really personally. It's been 20 years. So like, I don't know that it definitely gets easier, but you have your days, right? There's always going to be those.
Yeah. But your brand's also an extension of yourself too, though, right? So like, it's hard, like, you know, and when you're the owner and, you know, for better or worse, and you're pouring everything you have into it, not just financially, like time, energy, all of it and effort. Yeah, it sucks. It would, you know, I can appreciate that, because it's hard to get past the personal aspect and like how much that thing, you know, means to you. Like I kind of liken it, you know, to being a parent. Like I'm not naive enough to think that my kids don't do stupid stuff and, you know, deserve to get in trouble sometimes, but they're still my kids and I still love them. And so like, I'm not going to like if somebody came and said, oh, you know, like your daughter did this, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, like that doesn't matter. Like it's still like, it's the same thing with your business. I mean, it's not like I'd probably get in trouble for saying it is at home, but it is the same thing as your business, because you care about it so much and you put so much time into it. Right. So
yeah, I mean, I don't have kids, but I can understand. And I know like I remember with my parents, like say, I don't know, I drank too much alcohol and I acted silly. Like you can see the next day, like, you know, my parents are worried, like, have I offended anyone in the community? Have I like done anything? You know, it's like a extension of them. So they're like, you know, worried, or actually maybe not so much my mum. My mum couldn't care, but my dad's always like, you know, don't drink so much. Like, you know, so it's like, I think it's the same thing, like your kids, when they do things that maybe you wouldn't do, or in the way you're always stressed about, like, you know, what they've done, what's happening, you know, all the things. But at the end of the day, like this, you got to back them 100%.
Totally.
Anything they do. Well, thank you so much, Jared. This is a really great conversation. I loved chatting with you, and it's really good to sort of look at our businesses from like a different lens, a different angle, look at where we can like make improvements or invest our time and money, because I think like we get so set in how things should be, and it's really good to have a fresh perspective on like how things change and evolve. And it's good to hear from someone that's, you know, been in marketing, has seen the evolutions of how things have changed. So yeah, thanks so much. How can people find you, stalk you, learn more about what you do?
I don't know about the stalking part, but they can find me at our website, onegroupagency.ca, or definitely feel free to message me on LinkedIn, Jared Harman on LinkedIn, and happy to connect. Always love meeting new people and helping out wherever I can.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
What did you think? Was it insightful? For me, I found it really insightful to talk with another marketer, to hear from that sort of behind the scenes lens of being a marketing agency owner, talking about budget, him having multiple different relationships and roles across various different businesses, and he's really seen it all. So it was cool to hear from someone that has seen it all, get that validation, get that grounding. So I hope it was really helpful for you to sort of understand what you could do in your own business. But be a content queen or king, and remember that developing your strategy and story develops your business. Thank you so much for joining me today. And please don't forget to share this with all your business and entrepreneurial friends. If they've been talking about marketing budget, hiring agency, not hiring agency, I think it's a great one for all business owners to listen to. You can do that by clicking the share button. You could leave a rate and review, 5 stars, leave some comments. It allows us to get more great guests on like Jared, because these people, like, I'm getting the emails of pictures. There's lots going on in the background with the podcast, and this happens because you have left a rating review. So if you have, thank you so much. And if you haven't, I would love for you to hit the 5 stars or leave a comment on this episode. On Spotify, you can do it all the time. On Apple, you can leave a one-off review, but it really does help me continue to get amazing guests, to continue to deliver this content for you, to help you with your business. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all the platforms. And if there are any topics you want me to talk about in the future, please let me know. I've got a list from chatting with you all, but I would love more on the list. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.